contracting for these services with private organizations using public funds with no accountability. Assets being accounted for, including rolling stock, equipment, liquid assets, cash, and CDs. Are there guidelines that address the fiscal responsibility of these volunteer fire departments? Or is it set up in a manner in which the counties can get this support and help? As you can see, some of our issues center around a number of these points. Do you perform any type of fiscal meaning monetary responsibility, compliance standards, compliance performance type of audits? I don't know, some type of basis, timely basis? Are these all strictly county functions? And with that, I'll turn it back over. I'm just basically trying to learn what the state's relationship is with regards to the county and these volunteer fire departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Okay. Yes, sir. That's it for public comments. Up next is a presentation from the State Fire Marshal's office.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chairman Jones, fellow commissioners, and Mr. Marone, County Coordinator, thank you for all your guidance and invitation, hospitality. Mr. Schuler, where's Ms. Schuler? Thank you for giving us a little framework for how you conduct your county Board of County Commissioner meetings as well as your workshop. And I want to thank you in particular for allowing us to expand this to a workshop, because I know at first it was contemplated maybe a BCC meeting, and we might have only been limited to 15 or 20 minutes. So this is much better, so we can go into more details. And I'm Julius Hallis. I'm here representing Jimmy Petronas, our Chief Financial Officer. And I'm sure you know this as elected officials, but actually the CFO in Florida, after the constitutional amendment that changed the governor and the cabinet from 7 positions to 4 positions about 2 decades ago, that incorporated a number of functions under the Chief Financial Officer, one of which is still the elected State Fire Marshal, and also has Department of Insurance and other things in that portfolio. So we're the Division of State Fire Marshal, for which I have the honor of serving as the director for the last 13 years, has been under the Chief Financial Officer, who is the elected State Fire Marshal. Obviously, like many of you, you have to deal with public works, with planning and zoning, with many, many different hats and everything, and so does the CFO. So I get the privilege to be in the director, and I bring to the table 48 years in the fire service. I started my career with Sarasota after serving as a firefighter, EMT, paramedic, lieutenant, captain, all the way up through the ranks and everything, and became fire chief at the young age of 38 with 18 years of service. After a few years, we consolidated with Sarasota County. So the entire unincorporated area merged in with the city of Sarasota. And so that made us almost 500 fire personnel with 100 volunteers. And I bring that up not to brag or anything about the size, but it was quite a lot of responsibility. And it included 100 volunteers throughout the community, out in East County, near Mayaca State Park, and all those different areas. So there was a lot of rural areas east of I-75. And so we had some of the same dynamics that you have. You have coastal communities that are much more populated than some of your unincorporated northern parts of the county, which are more rural and forestry in nature. So that brings a lot of diversity to the community. It also brings a different set of challenges. So we're going to share today. I brought a lot of my staff to help me, and I'd like to introduce them at this time. Joanne Rice is our assistant director and she'll be sharing part of the program. Her tenure came up through Gainesville Fire Rescue, and so she's got a full over 30-year career. I've got Melissa Demercer, our Special Projects Coordinator, online, and she helps us with a lot of our grant infrastructure grants, so some of which have been awarded by the House and the Senate and approved by the governor right here in this county. I have Mark Harper, our Bureau Chief of the Florida State Fire College, which is, as a Bureau Chief, he's over the Fire Standards and Training Bureau and the Florida State Fire College. And one of the things unique about that is that we have, again, that diversity, some of the questions that came up in comments already about, different challenges and everything. As you can imagine, we have big, robust metropolitan departments that we help coordinate with, Jacksonville, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, etc. And then we have many, many rural departments. And so just several years ago, we were able to start getting some grants and everything that we're going to talk more about during this program. Because of the leadership of the CFO and State Fire Marshal, was able to work with the House and the Senate and get some financing for different types of grants. This green bucket, you might wonder, what is that green bucket sitting there for? It looks like it came from Lowe's or Home Depot. But actually, that green bucket represents one of our grants. And we brought several of these buckets over. Mr. Schuler, you appreciate that, because we want every fire engine in the county and all the incorporated areas in Franklin County to have one of these green buckets. In that is $250 worth of hoses, adapters, cleaning materials and everything. So when a firefighter goes into a contaminated fire and they come out, they immediately have to get some of those carcinogens off of their safety equipment and everything. So we're going to talk more about these grants later. But this particular grant was $1 million from the House and the Senate that was 100% funded with no local match. So all we had to do is sign everybody up, get some basic fundamental geographic information from them and demographics, and we disseminated nearly 5,000 of these, they're called on-scene post-fire decontamination kits. And you have them throughout the community. We're going to make sure if you have any new engines or updated ones that we'll make sure they're on there. Also, we have, let's go on to the rest of the staff. John Gatlin is our Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Fire Prevention. And I forgot to mention that Chief Harper did a long multi-decade career in DeLand Fire Rescue. Chief Gatlin did a multi-decadal career at Tallahassee Fire Department. And Chief Gatlin is in charge of our Bureau of Fire Prevention. And so we're going to talk both about training, standards, safety, and we're also going to talk about fire prevention responsibilities. And then we also have Susan Schell, and Susan Schell has been working for many years statewide in training and safety through the Bureau of Fire Standards and Training. And she helps us take care of safety inspections. Anytime a fire department is awarded one of these grants from the Florida House and the Florida Senate, through the proviso language, we have the responsibility to make sure they have a baseline safety inspection to help shore that department up. We want every fire department that's going to get a grant to be that much safer, and in doing that, we want to be sure they have fundamental safety and training and certification in place. So we check on a number of those things, and again, that's authorized by the Florida Senate, and the governor and our chief financial officer. A little bit later, I'm also going to introduce Kyle Biles with the Insurance Services Office under Bear Risk Analytics. And we partnered some years ago with the, I'm going to jump a slide for a second. We partnered with Chris Doolan and the leadership of the Small County Coalition, which, as you know, you're a member, and about 40 members now, I believe, Chris, to date. And so several years ago, a lot of the issues that you're talking about today and in the last several months here in Franklin County, these same issues have come up under a lot of the different members of the Small County Coalition. So the concept was, could we get together with the leadership of the Small County Coalition and also the Insurance Services Office and the State Fire Marshal, because a question came up on the phone there, how does this all fit together? What is the oversight? What are the regulations and criteria? So we thought, well, let's put a program together so that we could see the different facets of how a community that's trying to increase their level of service. Remember, the key thing to this presentation is that you are the elected county commission. So you are the authority having jurisdiction. We nickname that the AHJ, authority having jurisdiction. A lot of that you delegate to your county coordinator, your county attorney, and other staff in the county. But as an elected official, almost every charter, as you look through the 40 counties and members of the small county coalition, with a little bit different verbiage, almost every county elects those commissioners and then a chairperson, and you become the authority having jurisdiction over a number of responsibilities. We talked earlier about public works and planning and zoning. There's many things, many hats that you wear as a county commission, and also one of your hats, because almost every charter will say that you're in charge of health, safety, and welfare of your community. And that's why you also have an elected sheriff, and you have a county coordinator to appoint other key leaders to take care of these other responsibilities of the authority having jurisdiction. So many highlights of the program that we built several years ago with the Small County Coalition will be part of this program. And stepping back for a moment, I want to share with you what is our authority as the State Fire Marshal? That question's come up. Well, there's one key thing that sort of drives a lot of what we do statewide in the fire protection service. And one of those is that the Florida statute drives 633.202 Florida statute says that the State Fire Marshal shall adopt, and we know when that word shall is in there what that means. We shall adopt the most recent edition of the National Fire Prevention Association Fire Code and Life Safety Code. That's nicknamed as NFPA 1 and 101, every 3 years with local Florida-specific amendments. There's also a statute, 633.128, says that the State Fire Marshal shall provide cost-effective training programs for the certification of firefighters and other fire-related fields pursuant to that statute. And then finally, the State Fire Marshal may issue, when requested by any substantially affected person or authority having jurisdiction, a declaratory statement interpreting the Florida Fire Prevention Code pursuant to 633.104 Florida statutes. Now, Mr. Schuler was much more proactive than that, and we appreciate that, because if we got hundreds and hundreds of declaratory statements, which is like a petition, if it involves more than one state agency, it has to go to the Attorney General of Florida. But if it's specific to either the State Fire Marshal or the Department of Business and Professional Regulation or the Department of Education and so on, you can request, what exactly does this statute mean? How is it interpreted in the application that we're trying to utilize that within Franklin County? So instead of doing that, it's much simpler to have a get-together like this, share some information so we can present recommendations and areas of guidance, and then you also can then later on get back with us through your staff and do follow-up questions. So very important. And I do want to mention that before I go to this next slide, let me just go back one. Some people were wondering if we were going to come over here and take over some of your fire departments or something like that. There was some articles in the newspaper that were alluding to things like that. Well, let me make it real clear. I guess I was bragging a little bit about, I've got 48 years in the fire service and all my staff have got well over 3 decades. But what we don't have is we don't have an army of fire personnel or a fleet of fire apparatus. We have a couple of fire trucks down at the Florida State Fire College to do fire training, but we don't have hundreds of trucks. So how would we go around the state and try to look at every single community and say, oh, you ought to be providing a higher level of service. We're just going to come over and take over. Oh, we don't have the resources to do that. And of course, as you know, any of you that are well aware of our CFO, Jimmy Petronas, That's not the way he operates. He's all about public service, about how can we raise the bar, but also how can you do it in a fiscally responsible way. So I think more of the question is not, is the State Fire Marshal gonna come in and take over, but can the State Fire Marshal give you some guidance and help with the Insurance Services Office on some recommendations to how to do some mitigation, some community risk reduction efforts, reduce the risk of fire, public education. Ms. Jordan mentioned about what can we do as citizens in our community to do a safer job and work with our firefighters. Well, that's part of what public education and community risk reduction is all about. And the ISO rep, Kyle Biles, is going to talk about ways that you can do that later, that you can actually gain points without really costing a lot of money whatsoever. How can you do more public education, community risk reduction, and possibly reduce your Insurance Services Office municipal grading schedule so that you could actually hopefully begin to reduce the cost of fire insurance within the community. That helps everybody. So that's really why we're here. And finally, my part, before I turn it over to my staff, and I'm a little bit long-winded, and that's why you can see now why we needed a workshop and not a 15-minute agenda item, but we will pick up the pace here in a little bit. One of the other key things we do is during a major disaster, such as a hurricane, tornadoes, severe flooding, anything of that nature, and Lord forbid, any type of disaster that would be a man-made disaster, such as a domestic security incident. But under the CFO, Patronus, and my leadership, we are in charge of what we call Emergency Support Function 4, which is firefighting, and then Urban Search and Rescue, which is ESF 9. And we work together with the Florida Forest Service. If it's a wildland fire, we work together with Division of Emergency Management, with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and all the county sheriffs. And whatever type of major disaster